Good afternoon. On behalf of Glendale Community College and Career Education, I would like to welcome you to our Career Day panel featuring our Regional Directors of Employer Engagement and Statewide Director for Los Angeles region. You will have the opportunity to learn and explore about different industries related to your career goals and ask questions at the end of the presentation. My name is Marisela Canela, Career Educational Counselor from Glendale Community College, and I'll be co-hosting this event along with my colleagues, Isaac and Mirna, also CE Counselors for GCC. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our Regional Director, Sherry, from the Health Sector.
Hirschfeld, I'm the Regional Director covering the health sector. I'm also a registered nurse, and I came to this role through the clinical side of it, so I have a background in healthcare. Some of the skills that you would need going into a career in healthcare it's a very wide range. You need skills both in the humanities and social sciences, but also in the hard sciences and math. But of course, on top of everything is caring. If you don't care about your patients, then this is not the career for you. But caring is always, an essential. Critical thinking, to be able to stand on, to be able to think on your feet, and to be able to take a lot of information in and make a decision based on that. Communication, both written and oral, are essential components. Everything that all your work with patients is very much oral communication, and then everything that you do, you have to document. And there's a saying, if you don't document it, it wasn't done. So our documentation is really critical. And of course, the sciences, there's anatomy and physiology and chemistry and microbiology and pharmacology and all the sciences that you need to be proficient in, but taking that and applying it to the human. Most occupations in healthcare require some kind of certification or license, and there's a very wide range. We have some certificates that you can get in a one-semester course, and then there's licenses that take a doctorate degree before you're eligible for that. So there's a huge range, and there's lots of different ways that you can approach a healthcare career. You can set your sights on a very high-level license and go straight down the freeway for that. Or you can start along at an entry-level certificate and work a while and then advance into another area and work your way through a pathway like that. So there's lots of different ways that lots of off-ramps and on-ramps and pathways that you can use to a very satisfying career. Some of the entry-level positions are Certified Nursing Assistant, that's CNA, Home Health Aide, HHA, and Medical Assisting. And Glendale College has a Medical Assisting program. And some sample salaries. RN is one of the largest occupations in healthcare in terms of the number of employees. And RNs earn an average of $48 an hour. Starting out is about $38 an hour. Average is $48, and nurses can make much more than that depending on their specialty. A CNA usually starts at around $15 an hour, although now with COVID and the issues with long-term care facilities, they're offering premiums, so that's gone up. MDs, it's really tough to get an hourly range, but I just sort of picked some stuff off the internet. Depending on specialty, you can look at something from $119 to $398 an hour. So MDs, physicians, are generally the highest paid occupation in the healthcare sector. Challenges in healthcare. Well, we have things like infectious diseases and dealing with human beings, and actually I have challenges and rewards, and I think in many cases the challenges and the rewards are the same. It really depends on your personality and if this is a career that's right for you. So you have to deal with people at the greatest crises in their life, at birth, at death, illness, terrible illnesses, injuries. This is a time, and if that, the satisfaction of being able to help somebody through that is a huge reward, but it's also a great challenge. You're in the front lines, so you often don't know what you're going to be up against. You're in the front lines of infectious diseases, for example. The COVID crisis really is not the first one we've been through. It happens on a fairly regular basis, and you don't know that if you're seeing the first patient. I've been in this position long enough that I saw some of the first HIV patients and we had no idea what it was or how it was spread or how, and we had no way to treat it either or even diagnose it. So there was a lot of fear, but also, kind of like what Charlotte said, there's also lifelong learning involved. You have to constantly be adding to your wealth of knowledge as as the science changes, you have to keep up with it. But it's an amazing career, lots of opportunities, and lots of ways to implement a healthcare career. There's careers that are in the front line. There's careers that are behind the scenes, and there's many of these areas for you. Glendale College has several different programs, including, I mentioned, medical assisting. They have an alcohol substance abuse program, emergency medical technician, and a registered nursing physician. So talk to your counselor and consider a career in healthcare.
Thank you, Carrie. Myrna, would you like to introduce our next regional director?
Director is Judy Fox. She is the Regional Director of Employer Engagement, Business and Entrepreneurship. Judy, the floor is yours.
For both the business sector side and the entrepreneurship side of the sector. So on the business side, we're going to focus on the top 5 middle skill jobs that have the greatest number of job openings that pay a living wage or above, located right here in the Los Angeles region. So the jobs offering the greatest employment potential, if you're looking to engage in careers that are actually being hired for, number 1 is bookkeeping, accounting, and auditing clerks. And currently there's just over about 28,000 available jobs for that right now. I want to call attention to the fact too that I'm using data from the Center for a Competitive Workforce from 2020. So if you want to go on the EDC website and check that out, you can find the same information there. Number 2 is secretaries and administrative assistants. Number 3, hairdressers, stylists, and cosmetologists, followed by paralegals and legal assistants, and then production, planning, expediting, and logistics clerks. So if students were interested in pursuing any of those directions and pathways, they would follow our accounting, business administration, cosmetology, law, and then it could be a mix of several different things depending on how the colleges are offering it, whether that's supply chain, logistics, or international business. For the majority of those career options, a community college certificate is the minimum requirement. However, for hairdressers, stylists, cosmetologists, there's some state exams that they do have to pass. But in addition to the community college certificate, students can also earn digital badges that will help to verify they've acquired a certain skill competency. So that's just an added little feather in your quiver when you're going to compete for jobs. Consequently, the hairstyle, stylist, cosmetologist happen to also fall on the entrepreneurship side of the sector. So the top 5 occupations by the number of self-employed workers in LA County. So these are the groups that make up the highest population of entrepreneurs in the region, which would be 10% of all LA County being considered self-employed, are the child care and self-enrichment education worker, hairdressers, stylists, and cosmetologists, carpenters, real estate sales agents, and supervisors in retail management. Interestingly, though, those aren't necessarily the top paying jobs for our entrepreneurs, our giggers, or freelancers. So the self-enrichment education workers, you can see there, falls at the top around close to $21. Our heavy-duty tractor and truck drivers are at 19, real estate right around 19, photographer 17, and auto service technicians and mechanics. And what's interesting there is that we're seeing a large population of our entrepreneurs are actually coming from the automotive and transportation sector. But across the board, no matter what field of entrepreneurship you're getting into, there are some top skills that are required because a community college certificate is not necessarily needed to be an entrepreneur, although it can certainly help depending on the area or discipline that you choose to specialize in. If you choose to just go in and take a class to enhance your skills, the recommended ones are entrepreneurship and business management. Definitely e-commerce, especially at this time with everything going on. Excel, marketing, communications, and digital media and accounting and financial management. So our sector's website, which is not on here, is simple, businessandentrepreneurship.net. And we also have a curriculum repository for faculty that's available nationwide, and that is eshipeducator.net. So if you have any questions about any of the career paths or opportunities available from the business and entrepreneurship side for our LA region, my contact information is there at the bottom of the screen, and I would be happy to talk to you.
Thank you, Judy, for this great information. We will now move to our next regional director, who is Katie Mischler. She is the Advanced Transportation and Logistics and logistics. So take it away, Katie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So the area that I represent is pretty large. So advanced transportation and logistics includes, of course, auto mechanic, auto body, drones, aviation, heavy duty, and then on the other side of that, it's also going to be logistics, supply chain. So we have a really close relationship with global trade as well, so you might see some overlap there. And my sector website is also listed above, atnleducation.org. My dog wants to photobomb my appearance here. So some of the things for our sector skills, critical thinking, communication, networking is really big. In fact, networking is really big for any career or occupation you choose. Whenever I'm talking to students, I always let them know some of these are really small worlds, and you never really know when someone's going to end up somewhere else, and then they have hiring authority. So you always want to leave good impressions. You always want to learn the skill of networking and following up, because that can mean the difference between just meeting someone and getting a job. Excel is also really important, and also surprising how many people aren't that comfortable with Excel beyond the very basic skills. And so analytics, data analytics is big throughout the sector, especially for supply chain and logistics, but also even in the fleet world, which is where I spend a lot of my time. So analyzing fuel usage, budget, especially for compliance, regulatory compliance, and green alternative fuels is really big. And having a good attitude, I think, is also really important. And it sounds very cliche and maybe kind of basic, but I can't tell you how many times I have hiring managers or supervisors say, you know, we can teach a lot of things, but we can't teach someone to have a good attitude, to show up on time. Those really basic things are really, really important. And yes, some math is definitely still involved. You know, I know it's not everyone's favorite subject, but even when it comes to something like being a mechanic, math is involved in some of those principles of Ohm's law, etc. So you still need a little bit of math. And most positions do require some education or some kinds of industry certifications in order to enter the workforce in those areas. Some different entry-level positions. Again, this is a very quick snapshot because it's extremely a very large sector. Auto mechanic, auto body repair, porter, flight attendant, data entry, clerical, package handling. Interestingly enough, when you think of those like FedEx and UPS, FedEx especially have told me, hey, we hire pretty much everybody as a package handler, and then they work their way up through the ranks at FedEx. So, you know, that's a really good way to kind of get into a larger organization and then grow from there. Some sample salaries, mechanics, typically $18 an hour plus, depending on your skill level. Flight attendants, typically $23 an hour plus, and commercial pilots, $37 an hour plus. Glendale Community College has a great aviation pilot program as well as a flight attendant program, and also logistics courses as well, and dabbling with global trade. Some challenges: we as a sector are also not immune right now from the COVID-19 situation. So while things like mechanics are considered essential businesses, sales are not. So we're seeing a huge decline in sales of cars, in service. Obviously, lots of flights are grounded, airlines are cutting, but there's also going to be hope in the recovery. So there's already lots of strategies and conversations taking place on how to adapt and change and grow. And I think in a way that's going to be part of the rewards. For example, supply chain and logistics is going to absolutely explode because we're seeing all about that now, right? The supply chain, the food supply chain especially, has been a big topic of conversation. Getting supplies from production all the way through to warehousing to stores for consumers to purchase. So I think that's going to be a huge area of growth in the future. And so please feel free to and again, this is just like a quick, snapshot of everything. There's so much more, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate at all. My contact information can be found on the 18L sector website. And thank you so much to Glendale for hosting.
Thank you, Katie. I will now turn this over to my colleague, Isaac Pedraza.
Thank you. So the next speaker is going to be Bruce Noble. He's the Regional Director of Employer Engagement for the Energy, Construction, and Utility sectors. So Bruce, take it away.
Thank you, Isaac. The energy and construction utility sector, I scribbled down some notes here. There's some consistencies, I think, at least for the first 4 or 5 of these presentations, is that no one has really talked about you have to go to college or you have to do apprenticeship or you have to do something, but you do have to have good communications, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. I think that's universal. The other thing we've talked about are middle skills. If you're not familiar with middle skills, the middle skills are those careers that require a post-secondary, which means post-high school, training, usually with some kind of industry-valued outcome, credential, certificate, badge, what have you. Doesn't require a 4-year baccalaureate, and some of that training can be accomplished in as few as 6 months, and some of them take a couple of years, if you or more. The opportunity, the business for San Luis County in this green economy of construction, which is immune from COVID-19. It is all of the construction jobs that we're talking about are considered as essential jobs. Employs about 140,000 workers in Los Angeles, with about 15,000 workers required for replacement or organic growth each year. There's a common perception that the jobs in the energy, construction, utility sector are carpenters, plumbers, and electricians. Yes, that's true, and those jobs are there and they do pay well. But for almost every one of those people on those roles, there's someone else who is in another area, which is in the design or the operations and maintenance of the systems for the infrastructure. Infrastructure includes wireless systems, telephone communication systems, electrical distribution systems, roads, waterworks, just anything that has to do with infrastructure or construction and buildings are in this sector. The sample entry-level wages are really attractive. On the design side, for architecture and drafting and for engineering technicians, it's around $25, $27. The construction crafts for the higher level crafts are in the $22 to $25 range, with inspectors and some of the specialty entry level are in the $35 range. Operations and maintenance, our technicians often start at around $18 an hour, and if you want to really be brave, you can become a utility power line technician, and you will guarantee be making $120,000 a year right now. It's very, very, very lucrative. The typical route is entry level, start in as some helper or as a primarily a helper or a laborer, And after about 5 years, you will have the experience in that particular trade to be making between $60,000 and $100,000 a year, almost guaranteed. And there's still high demand for, at least for the foreseeable future of 6 to 8 years. Let's see, challenges. Well, there's the good and the bad. The challenges that this work is often outdoors or sometimes in confined spaces, but the rewards are manifold in that you have complete independence. You're supposed to work for yourself and by yourself and in teams, but you're independent. You have responsibility for the work you do. You're autonomous, and this is a green career. And I think that's pretty much the high points of the area. It is wide open. Like I said, there's almost 150,000 people and over 15,000 jobs every year in this area that need to be filled. And Glendale has many of these programs in their catalog.
Thank you, Bruce, for that great information. The next regional director is Ruth Manuel. She's the regional director of employer engagement and global trade. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, sorry I was muted. Thank you Glendale for hosting us all. I really do miss the campus, the beautiful campus, and hope to be back soon. So I know we don't have a lot of time, so this is just a snapshot of really our sector. So I really would encourage everyone to visit our sector website, which I put right on the title, globaltradeworkforce.com. And it has a wealth of information about different areas of our topic. Before I delve into kind of what the skills are in the sector, I want to talk a little bit more about what the global trade sector is all about, because it's something that maybe a lot of people are not familiar with. We hear a lot about health, but not necessarily global trade. And global trade, similarly to health, is very broad. Obviously, you could be a CNE, like Sherry said. You could be a respiratory therapist, you could be a nurse, you could be a surgeon. And each position has different training, different level of education, and you kind of know that intuitively. And similarly, global trade as well. There's different areas you go into and different industries that it intersects with, and it helps to break it down. So in my second point, I have global trade domains, and that can help you understand kind of how to break down the sector. So in global trade, you could go into global marketing, you can go into global business management, you can go into trade finance, you can go into supply chain, you can go into cross-border e-commerce. And if you go on our sector website, there's a really good description of each area. And I'll just highlight them very briefly because we don't have a lot of time today. So global marketing is really the management of sales on a global scale, right? What are the research and strategies that you need to do when you're selling to somebody in another country? Or global business management is more of the project management side of it, right? There's a lot of negotiation, a little bit more cultural awareness when you're managing a project domestically, and internationally is very different. Global e-commerce is really where the future is at. I think everybody mentions it and intersects every sector. It's really the global marketplace is not necessarily going physically, it's really online. So how do you manage your online sales, and how do you take your goods to an international customer? Supply chain is where the area that intersects a lot with advanced transportation, logistics, and obviously business in general. Is really the process of planning and implementing and controlling procedures from transporting a good from manufacturer to the consumer. And trade finance, this is huge in global trade, right? You can't just sell to an international customer. There's a lot of transactionals involved. There's a lot of compliance that is involved, right? So there are people that have to manage all of that. And that's, in this day and age, is still a lot of paperwork. So in all of these areas, there's a lot of people and jobs that are involved. And the reason I got involved in global trade was when I moved from Canada. I'm Canadian. 13 years ago, I said, I have some global competencies. I can speak different languages. I've lived abroad. What can I do? And the more I researched this region, it's really like the hotspot. Is that the word, hotspot? It's really the place to be if you want to be for global trade. We have two of the largest ports. We have the largest airport. Just these entities alone provide thousands of jobs for our region. And California is really a global economy, as I mentioned here. It's always ranked in the fourth or the fifth largest economy. So we're not just producing for ourselves, we're producing for the world, right? In 2019, we exported about $173 billion in goods. So if you want to be in global trade and you're living in Los Angeles, you're at the right place, right? So that's why I got into it, and I had to go back. I was already, older, and I had to go back to school and really go back for an international trade certificate program. I did it at UCLA, but there's a really great programs throughout our community college program, because there's business, but there's a lot of intricacies with global trade, a lot of compliance, a lot of stuff that you have to know that is global trade specific. So that's kind of how I broke down the domains. It's really important to understand the areas that you're interested in. Maybe you're more in the marketing side. Maybe you're more of a analytical type of person and more data person. Maybe supply chain might work for you. So you kind of just understand yourself and then pursue programs that kind of align with your strengths. So some of the jobs that are in global trade, these are just some of the highlights. Obviously, you could go to export, import. You can go into compliance. You can go into cargo freight agents, customer service specifically for global trade. When you're working, in the FedExes and the Amazons, you're always dealing with international, suppliers and also customers. Digital marketing is huge in the e-commerce world, and obviously global logistics, getting the goods for and dealing with suppliers from different parts of the world is also very important. A lot of jobs start up at entry level at a specialist or a clerk, and then you can kind of move on to a manager, and you could kind of lead different teams. And the salary ranges depending on how big the company is. Obviously, your salary working at an Amazon or a FedEx is going to be different than a smaller supplier. But I also encourage people to really get into the smaller suppliers and kind of move, and that could be a stepping stone to working more in larger companies. So now, kind of after giving that broad overview, then I can go back to the skills. What are the uniquely global skills that would be pertinent for global trade? I would say cross-cultural communication skills, collaboration, customer service, people skills, project and account management is very important, and just curiosity about the world. We actually have a good definition of what global competence is, which is going to be a very important 21st century skill.